let's say there's someone similar to you, maybe they're in middle school or high school,
Mm-hmm.
and they're interested in making films. Like, that's their passion. That's what they want to do.
Yeah.
What would be, obviously, I'm sure it's different based on the type of movie you're filming and like what you're trying to do. But what's like a general step-by-step guide on how they could get started? Maybe they have a short film they want to film.
Yeah. I mean, just start making shit. It might be bad, but like you got to make it. So the main thing is that there's always a solution to your limitations in terms of budget, in terms of what you have. You know, if it takes filming something on an iPhone because you don't have the budget for a camera, film it on an iPhone. It's better than nothing. You have something, and then maybe you'll be able to show your little iPhone movie to someone you know who has a good camera and say like, hey, this is my little iPhone short. You know, it's kind of crap because it's shot on an iPhone, but I was hoping if you like the story, if you like, you know, if you have talent, if you have, you know, a gift, if you're creative and you have the opportunity to tell good stories, the other stuff will come to you. It'll take time, but it'll come to you. You know, I started kind of from scratch during the pandemic. I had been working on theater for years and not having any knowledge in film at all. I took a film class that connected me to like one or two people. We shot a little short that was, I think the crew consisted of literally 2 other people. So it was me directing and acting and screenwriting and doing all this, and one guy doing camera and one person just kind of helping with whatever else we needed. And we put together this fun little short about being late to school. And I showed it to people and they thought it was fun. And so my next short, couple of those people who thought it was kind of cool hopped on board, and we had a crew of like 7 or 8 people, you know, and kept doing that, kept making a little better, getting a couple more people, couple more resources. And, you know, then I started my feature, and by the end of the feature, we had 73 people on board and like high-end, we had a drone, we had high-end equipment, but we're still nowhere close to, you know, full. So it's always going to be about growth. And my biggest recommendation, if you're not ready, if you don't feel qualified to make a good story yet, that's also fine. Watch lots of movies. That's always the biggest thing, is find what you like in cinema. Think about, you know, don't just watch movies, think about movies. Think about like, these are my favorite movies. Why are they my favorite? Not just like, oh, I love this actor, or this fight scene is really cool. Think about what makes the fight scene cool. What are they doing that's so much different than the fight scenes in other movies that maybe don't hit as quite as hard? What is this actor doing that's blowing my mind in a way that most actors don't? Think, like, really get down and interview yourself about what you like in films. And there's a common saying of like, you know, good artists like borrow, but great artists steal. Because when you start out as an artist, you are just drawing from what you know and what you love. And there's a lot of what some would call tributes and what other people would call stealing from, you know, my favorite movies in my films. And I think of it more as like, I always think of it more as tributes, or as there's this incredible idea someone had. And as long as it works for this film and I'm doing it for a reason that is self-earned by the film, it's not stealing. You're not saying like, wow, that guy's not creative because he did this shot that's similar to what Kubrick did in The Shining. You know, it's more like, oh, that shot's kind of like this shot from The Shining.
I feel like a lot of what creativity too is just being able to pull from different sources and put them together.
Yeah, as long as you're making a unique and interesting film, you can totally take pieces from other things. At the end of the day, you want it to be its own thing, though. That's the main thing. Is so the more you watch, the more you discover about yourself and what you like, the more you can kind of own that and figure out. Okay, like let's say that you love. Star Wars, the original Star Wars film, but you think that Han Solo is an asshole, right? Actually, let's change this up. Let's say that you love Han Solo, and Han Solo is like your favorite character, and Luke bores you, right? Start with, what would Star Wars be like if Han Solo was the hero then? If Luke was not a part of the story and Han Solo was there. His personality, his type of character, okay? Now, maybe the Force is also kind of weird, like the fact that there's magic in this world. Maybe I don't want magic, so let's cut out the Force. What happens to the story then? What is it really about? Maybe it's just about like the rebellion and the Empire. Okay, so you have that. Take out the spaceship, set it medieval. Pretty soon, like you're gonna have a totally different story. Maybe it was once just Star Wars with Han Solo instead of Luke, but if you keep doing that, if you keep stripping away elements that you think could be improved upon, and you say, I could do better with this, maybe. You know, all this is great, but this could be better. Then you look at that and you're saying, oh, now that this piece is here, this piece doesn't quite work anymore. So let's fix that. Let's take this away and put it. And it's this thing of like, by the end, you started with a structure, and you've taken apart piece by piece by piece until it's a totally new structure.
Dude, it sounds just like, do you know that paradox about the boat?
Yeah.
It sounds
exactly
just like
the
that.
boat. 100%.
That's wild.
So yeah, that's an easy way to get started. If you're thinking like, I don't really have any ideas, take an idea you already have and literally start by just straight up stealing the entire story. But don't stop there. Don't just make that, Figure out ways to change the story and to say, all right, I'm going to make it my way. And by the end, hopefully, there will be elements. Sure, people can be like, oh, this is kind of like Star Wars. But they'll have no idea that it literally is Star Wars until you changed it. Yeah.
No, I never even thought of that idea. I like that. I also like what you said earlier about how you should, like, you can make something with your iPhone, right? And then show someone who has a better camera. And then possibly, if they get them interested, you can use the camera. Because I feel like a lot of people will use not having the resources of, like, quality equipment as I don't know, maybe an excuse to not film something.
Yeah.
But I feel like the way to get that equipment is to do something.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And it's also in terms of your own improvement. If you're not very experienced, you can't sit around saying like, oh, I can't make this movie because I have no experience, because then you'll just never make it. Yeah. So get the experience then. And there's absolutely a thing of like, if there's a movie you want to make, but you don't have the experience yet, but like all I really need to do is do like two other things first. Then do those two other things. That's fine. Yeah. As long as you have like a game plan, you have a roadmap, on how to get there. So that has been a thing for me in the past, and especially in the future. I have like, in a perfect world, the features I want to do before I'm 50. And there's like, I think 7 or 8 of them. So I have each one planned out. I know when I'm going to make them, at what point in my life. And they all depend upon the success of the previous one in terms of like, was I able to make it? Was I able to get the budget for that? Could I push for a slightly bigger budget on this one? Because it would be impossible for me to go and, spoiler alert, I want to make a Beowulf movie someday. But the Beowulf movie would be literally impossible for me to make right now. It would just be, I want to film in Iceland. I want crazy budget for the monsters, for the dragon in it. I want actual actors. I want teams of Viking extras. It would be a massive, massive movie. So the question is not, it doesn't become, oh, I can't make Beowulf. It's, what do I have to make first so that I can make Beowulf?
I see.
So then you lay it out and you're like, okay, Life Almost Gone was something I could make now. What has Life Almost Gone prepped me to make next? And that's where I'm looking at like what the scripts I'm writing at right now are. These are things that are harder and they require a little more budget. They require a little more experience, a little more time. But I have that now. After making Life Almost Gone. I couldn't have made this film before I made Life Almost Gone, but I've made it now, so now I can.
So it's kind of like an RPG game where you use the resources you have to make something, and then once you make that, you can get more resources.
Yes, exactly. The leveling up and getting new.
That's awesome.
Yeah, 100%. So, and that doesn't have to be with features. It can be with shorts. You can start with like a 1-minute film where the only character is you, and you are the director of photography. You're the director. You're the editor. You're the actor. You're
when your credits is just all.
It's just you, exactly. So you can do that, and you can make it as long as it's a fun little story that people might be interested in. Make it. And show it to people and say, hey, I'd love to make something else, but have like a couple more people. Are you interested? And then you get them on board. And then you make a movie with 3 people.
Well, I also know you told me one of the ways you also get people to help you with films is you've like helped on a lot of other people's films, right?
Yeah. There's especially when you're in the low budget kind of, the time in which no one's paying each other, it becomes much more of a kind of a bartering system of like there's no money, so I'll trade my labor for your labor, so you work on my film and then I'll work on yours, and no one says that. It's a dick move to be like, well, you haven't been on one of my projects yet, so I'm not going to work on one. It's just kind of a thing of like, you keep in the back of your head like, you were a great person to work with on my film, so then next time they ask you for help on yours, of course you're just going to be like, yeah, sure. And it's happened with me where like, you'll work on a person's set 15 times and they'll only work on your set once, but that's just because of like the opportunities that have come up, So there have been a bunch of people that I've helped out with on a bunch of projects who have just like not been available for most of mine, but then they'll come on like one that they are, and it'll be a super good time. And I'm like, you're trying your best. So it's all good. And
it's also a benefit to you because you're learning other stuff while you're on these projects that you could apply.
And the more you learn about the other parts of the process, the better, because you, as a director, you should know as much as possible about every single person's job, because it's one of those things where if you're in a position of power and you don't understand what your crew is going through, then you don't really deserve to be in charge of them, because they're going through a struggle that you can't understand. So you need to understand that. You don't have to be an expert in anything by any means, other than directing. But if you get the job of the lighting person, and they're obviously way better than you, but you get the struggles, you get the complications of that, then it helps you in your communication with that lighting person, because you're like, I know what you're doing here. Can we get a little bit more of this? And you know whether or not it's feasible. You know whether or not how hard it is. You know if you're asking a big thing of them or a small thing of them. And you can also find things that you really enjoy that you didn't know you liked. I didn't know I liked doing sound until it just became a thing where on a ton of sets I was seeing that like there's no sound people. There's like 40, 50 people who run camera in Vegas, and I've only met like 6 or 7 sound people. So I was like, oh, there's like no sound people? Okay, I'll learn out of necessity. People need sound stuff. And I found that it was super fun. I really loved it.
And now it's helping you for your project.
Yes, and now I like just do sound design for other people's projects. That's like a job I have on, like I'll actively look for sound design projects with no expectation that they'll ever help me out on my thing. So yeah, it's good to have different paths in this career, because it's such a flighty career. It's such a hard thing to actually get success in, that it's setting yourself on like, this is my one path to success. This is my one goal. If I don't make it as an actor, I'm fucked. Yeah. That's bad. That's pretty rough. So if you can say, all right, I want to be an actor, but I also know how to AD, I also know how to script supervise, etc., it means you're going to get a lot more jobs, and you're going to be working more, you're going to be making money more often, and more experience, exactly. And you could be meeting people while you're ADing and saying, hey, by the way, I'm also an actor. Like, let's say you're the AD on a set, and the DP is also sometimes a director, right? DP currently is just a DP, but on his next project, he's going to be the director, and he's looking for actors. You're currently the AD, but you're also an actor. You guys get talking, you're hitting it off, you're having a good time. Yeah, network, promote yourself. Maybe you'll be an actor in his film.